Folks, you can always support the show by buying coffee at rangercandycoffee.com using promo code LeonDresegovia to get free shipping. And also, if you're into natural health products, skincare in this case, I recommend you check out my friends over at the Goat Farm. I don't have a promo code for you, so this is an affiliate link, and the link is in the description accompanying this podcast wherever you're tuning in.
You're listening to the Andre Segovia Show.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the program. I am Andre Segovia. Thank you for joining me today. I got a couple of topics I want to address real quick. One of them is with respects to making sense of the National Association of Realtors settlement in that lawsuit that they lost over in Missouri that's having industry-wide impact, whether you're a professional in the trade or a potential client. It affects all of us just the same. And the confusion, well, there's a lot of confusion about it actually, but is the media actually covering this correctly? That, and also this whole squatters' rights situation, because there was a case happening in, for those of you that haven't seen it or haven't heard of it, that occurred in New York City that is getting nationwide attention that I also want to cover because it's not exclusive to NYC. Alrighty, let's get down to business. What is and isn't this whole settlement with the N.A.R? Well, what can I say? I was invited by the C.A.R., that's the California Association of Realtors, and also by the local chapter association that I was a part of to participate in a couple of webinars. And I went in with questions, and I came out of it with even more questions. So what I can tell you this, because the headlines are that the 6% commission is a thing of the past, it's antiquated now, and this and that. Well, the misunderstanding there is that you had to pay a broker 6%. That was never the case. It was always negotiable. And it's typically negotiated between the listing agent and the seller. The listing agent, in this case, applying to either an agent in an office working for a broker or the broker himself. It can get a little confusing at times with all this overlap in all these titles. But the point is that the listing, the one that's going to sell the property, is the one negotiating the split of the commission with the seller. And a lot of times it went like this, where the seller would sit down, and if, let's say, they agreed to the 6%, okay, they agreed to the 6%. And from the 6%, they said, okay, half of that, offer it up to the buyer's agent. That way to compensate them for the transaction. And in my case, often is the case, except for like maybe one, I've had it where my seller told me they don't want me to bring the buyer. They want someone else to bring the buyer. And they could even specify, I don't want that agent that brings the buyer to also be an agent from your office. All of that could be specified. And that's what people don't understand. And that's not entirely the fault, though, of the client. It's the job and the duty of realtors, or anyone in the profession, honestly, to educate their client. And that's what I always did. Whenever we would sit down in person, most of the time in person before everything went more digital, I would go through that mountain of paperwork. I would not tell them, no, don't just hit accept terms and conditions. We're going to read the terms and conditions. You know, every time you upgrade your whatever software, you just skip ahead and just hit accept, not knowing that you're probably signing your rights away like you do with Facebook, Google, and all those guys. Well, I'm one of those that reads it, and I want to educate my clients every chance that I get. And that was primarily the mission of my podcast when I first brought back the brand, the Andre Segovia Show. I did it as a way to not just be the marketing branch of my real estate career, but also to inform clients, both homeowners, sellers, investor types, and tenants. I wanted everybody to know what's up in the up and up, and also what policies affect all of them, including the services that we're trying to provide. And this is one of those cases. And I used to do a series, I kind of still do, but just not on a regular basis, called Real Estate 101. And that's to explain the in and outs of real estate. And I also did another segment called Debunking Real Estate Myths, because there's misunderstandings and claims that are made about real estate that aren't exactly true, but a lot of people tend to believe them. And one of them was this whole 6% commission thing. I can't remember the last time, it might have been nearly a decade ago, that I got a 6% commission, because everything else was either 5% or less anytime that I've had these deals. So, and from those percentage points, normally the buyer got a bigger cut from me. And my clients would say, we don't want you to double end this deal. So, and I'm okay with it. That was all part of the negotiations at the onset. But now with this whole, the headlines about the N.A.R. losing the case about the commission thing, the 6% the thing of the past, people are going to misinterpret that, and they're going to do it because the media is running with it. They're not even part of the profession. And here's the thing, folks. They didn't reach a settlement. They're offering a settlement. So as of this recording, it's not done yet. So see how easily things can be taken out of context? Well, that's how easy it is. Let's say this agreement is reached. Here's some of the takeaways that I did get from the seminars. One of the good things to come out of this settlement that the N.A.R. is proposing is that from the buyer's side, let me explain the seller side first. Whenever there's something what we call the listing presentation, if all goes well, we sign what is called a listing agreement. And normally we sign an exclusivity listing agreement. That means I'm selling this property and only I can do the sale for this length of time. Okay? Whatever amount of time, it begins on this time and ends on this day at this time. That's how specific you can make the terms. If the seller were to go behind my back and try to sell off the property by their own means so they can avoid the commission, or they got a friend that will do it for them or whatever, and we signed this exclusivity agreement, well, I'm entitled to that commission. So that's what that commission, the agreement is all about. When it comes to the buyer's side, well, it happens a lot with buyer's agents too, where they're working with the buyer, and if they're first-time home buyers, they're usually very hesitant about all this. So they usually kind of skip the signing of the buyer's agreement because it becomes an understood you. But what if these buyers are talking to so-and-so that's so-and-so, or another friend that's in real estate, and maybe that other person can find in the house? That happens quite often, honestly. I've had it where I've seen some buyers offer me up. It's like, well, I don't want to sign the buyer's agreement because, I do have a friend in real estate and they're helping me find a house too. It's like, wait, so do you want to work with me or you want to work with your friend? You can go sign with your friend. You don't have to be talking to me. It's like, oh, well, but they're not in this area and this and that. He's like, well, if they find me one in that area, I was like, look, you either sign with me or you don't. That's just it, okay? Because we're not going to play this cat and mouse game, and then next thing we know, we have to go the legal route to redeem our commission that we're owed because we actually put in the legwork. Because for those of you that are unaware, still, if you're not in the industry, there is no upfront payments done to anyone in our profession. We all get paid through payroll. At the end of the transaction, after the disbursements have been sent to the respective parties, that's how we get paid. We don't get paid directly and upfront. And if someone's doing that, report them. And unfortunately, I have run into clients that have been burned in that respect. And what really upsets me is that a lot of the clients that have been burned are immigrants. Oh, my goodness. Believe me, it really irks me when that happens. That's why I always tell my clients that it's important for them to have these speed numbers on speed dial just in case they ever need them. And I ran into these individuals that told me these at open houses. It breaks the heart. But I'm bringing awareness to that now to let you know that's how it is. But one of the good things to come out of the settlement, should they agree to it, is that it will require the buyer's agreement, not just an understood you. So I think it's a protection for everybody. The confusion then becomes, well, how is then the commission agreed to? Because now, let's say the seller is going to be agreeing to maybe, let's say half. Let's use 3%. That they're going to, no, you're selling my property, you're selling it for 3% because that's what you're getting paid. And you're not negotiating this split with the buyer's agent because it will no longer be on the multi-listing service. That's as far as I understood this whole thing. Because on the multi-listing service, where all the brokers and agents are looking at if they're paying members of the MLS, we'll be able to see the offer that's being made. Like, hey, if you bring a buyer, successfully close this transaction, you get this split of the commission. But if that's now out of the picture, that means the buyer's agent needs to negotiate it with their buyer. And if they're a first-time home buyer, which is often the case, they do not have the means to close on the deal because of how hefty of a price tag is coming here. So they sometimes ask the seller for concessions. You might have heard about this. Hey, can you help me with this much money to close on the closing costs? Okay. Oh, the seller can choose to or not to do that. They're not obligated to do anything like that. But what about now? Now it's like, well, now you don't have the money to pay the commission either? Uh-oh. it's hard enough already to try to make sense of where this all can go, and I believe it's going to hurt first time home buyers a lot more than it's going to hurt sellers. So it's interesting to see where all this goes. Like I said, I have more questions than answers, and that's how I came away from this, because we didn't really get a clear answer on that. Again, it hasn't been settled upon just yet. It's an offer, take it or leave it kind of situation, so they could still go to appeals in the court case. So whatever the media is saying, it's not the case yet unless you're hearing it directly from legal counsel of the Association of Realtors. They're the ones that matter. And whatever changes are in store, if they agree to it, we're not going to see it in our industry for another couple of months, at least. Maybe by the fiscal year end, which is June 30th, and the new forms kick in for July 1st. We'll have to see about that. Right now, everyone is scrambling to try to make sense of all this. And what the last webinar was on, there were way more attendees than were expected on that Zoom webinar, that the legal counsel was like, I'm not going to answer any questions. I was only presenting. So the legal counsel ended up leaving. Not his fault, because that's not what he was prepared for. But even he wasn't going to have all the answers too. So I will be leaving to John Gardnerelli's rants, where he explains some of this. So this is the local chapter association. I'll be leaving a link to that in the show notes accompany this episode at www.discover.com. So for anybody that's interested, can hear from him directly. And I just think it's an important piece that if you want to be learning about all this, that's a way to really understand that, what we know so far. Okay, this is from days ago, and it could be obsolete by the time you're finally listening to this. So that's the ebb and flow of how things are going right now. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say with respect to the N.A.R. settlement offer. It's not settled. It's an offer. As of this recording, it hasn't been accepted, so we'll see where that goes. But either way, this doesn't just affect the Association of Realtors of any state or at a national level. It affects the industry as a whole. You do not have to be a realtor to do business. A realtor just means you're paying to the association union dues so you can use the trademark label that is realtor. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the squatter story, shall we? So this is a case from New York City, and I'm going to read it from Colin Rugg because that's who I saw it from first. And this was the tweet that he posted, and we still call them tweets, not X posts. He posted this on March 19th, 2024. And it has 6.2 million views. So here's what he was reporting, and this was the case. I don't just take tweets at face value. I like to read the reports. New York City homeowner gets arrested after changing the locks on her own home after it got taken over by squatters. Never do business in New York. Okay, that's an opinion. In New York City, anyone can simply claim squatters' rights after 30 days of living at a home, which isn't even enough time for the city to do their investigation, their work, and their job, according to homeowner Adele and Delaro. When the 30-day mark comes, it is illegal to change the locks, remove tenants, or turn off the utilities. The bogus law means practically anyone can squat in a home, and there is nothing the homeowner can do about it. During the news segment, Andolaro was arrested for unlawful eviction and taken away in handcuffs. Now, I don't recall if I actually shared this to my Twitter feed, but I'm bookmarking it because I probably will just when I announce this podcast. But it's worth noting that it's not a New York City thing. It's a big city thing, because there is a situation that I've seen happen. I was on the contractor side of things that was supposed to arrive to change the door locks for squatters. This is not a new thing. We dealt with it a lot. And because of this story, a lot of people have been sharing, and even sharing it with me, asking me, even today before I started recording, it's like, what is this? Where there are groups of people that have made it a business at this point to basically squat the squatters. That's how I'm describing it, because at first there's a guy, I think it was San Fernando Valley. He offered up a service for a friend of his that ended up having to deal with squatters that were claiming squatters' rights. And look, I have a lease agreement for this home. You can't kick me out. It's like, but I didn't make it with you, but it's right here. Anybody could forge it. So this guy got the idea. I don't have his name, but what he ended up doing was like, well, how about when they're gone, I squat in and I, take over the property, but you signed me a real lease. And that's what happened. When they left, he ended up squatting in there, pushed all their stuff out, changed the locks, and then he lived there. When the people came back, the squatters, if the first squatters that arrived, say, hey, you're in our home. No, you're not. I live here, and here's an actual lease agreement that I have with the homeowner. So no, joke's on you. And that's how he was able to get them out. And now he made a business out of it, a very dangerous business, I would say, because I've had to. Normally, when evictions like this are done, there's multiple parties involved. Usually, the homeowner or an agent for the owner, a contractor or a locksmith of sorts, and the sheriff's department. So it's a presence of a lot of people that need to be there to make this happen, to enforce that rule, and it's costly. And anything can affect all this to make what is called an unlawful eviction. So it's a process and a procedure that does take a lot of time. It takes money, it takes effort, and you only get really one shot at it to do it right. So this story out of New York, unfortunately, is not a unique story. It's just awful to see that a homeowner cannot enforce rules on their own home. They end up getting arrested for that, and those that are stealing from her are the ones that get all the rights. And that's communism, folks. Communism, plain and simple. All these big cities, they don't believe in private property rights. All they believe is that if you have it, then you are privileged and this belongs to the people. They behave the same way with your children. That's why you see all these different Marxist policies at the school levels, the school board levels. That's why you see their behavior as to like, well, it's not your child. It takes a village to raise a child. Therefore, it's the state's child. Elizabeth Warren said something to that effect, Senator Elizabeth Warren. So when you come to realize that all these laws have been passed, and I was having a conversation with my father about this actually earlier in the day, that look, I don't care, honestly, what happens in certain regions of this earth. I do feel for the people that are going through said life experiences, life altering or life ending experiences. There's always so much emotion that can go around. But a lot of these stories are meant to distract us from what's happening in our own backyard. This goes for Washingtonian politics. I do not like this whole circus, this whole smoke and mirrors that we put up to be distracted by Washingtonian politics and not care about what's happening at our own state level or our local levels. And by the time we find out about these things, it's too late already. How can we have these activist DAs like George Gascon in power? And how can people still, quote unquote, keep voting these people into power? Well, when you only have 12% of a turnout for a primary in the most populous state in the union, 12% out of the registered voters, we're a population of 35 million in California. That low of a turnout in the election season, it comes to tell you that people don't really care. But they'll be the first ones to complain when things don't go their way. Like this whole squatter thing is a big deal right now that people are just becoming aware. It's like, dude, this has been going on for decades. Where you been? So I guess it's bringing awareness. It's unfortunate this is happening, but it does happen. And I've been on this end of it, of things, So it really is something that we need to really learn to control our whatever we consume of media. A lot of it is true. A lot of it is not, like the whole thing about the N.A.R. settlement. It's not settled, but everything's being reported as if it has been, and people are misunderstanding what it is. Well, in this case too, when did this whole squatters' rights thing happen? It's been around for a while, and it's not limited to New York City. It's a big blue city problem. So when you start digging into your own local ordinances and start looking into your own state legislature, you're going to start finding a lot of things. You're like, when did this happen? Exactly. You are going to find out too late that these things have been done, and you were asleep at the wheel because you could have done something about it if you are a registered voter. You can hold your politicians accountable. Vote them out if they're not doing their job. Vote the right people in and hold them accountable too. That's the power of our vote. Share this with your community. Let them know. And be vigilant if you're a homeowner about these whole squatters' rights. If you didn't know then, you know now. And it's pretty scary. And in Los Angeles, it's even worse. And I dealt with rent control. And in fact, I did an episode, one of the last remaining streams that I did on Rumble was to that effect. So I'll be embedding that video in the description of this episode at www.discover.com. So check out the show notes when they are posted, typically within 24 hours of a podcast going up. But anyway, that's where I'll leave it this time. Thank you so very much. Remember, you can always support my show by either buying some of my stuff on Amazon or buying coffee from Ranger Candy Coffee. Use promo code Segovia, or now even my friends at the Goat Farm. Check out natural skincare products by following the affiliate link on this description of this episode wherever you're tuning in. Even the show notes accompany this episode. So thank you very much. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Stay to know. Follow me across the social at the Segovia on X, formerly known as Twitter _Segovia. And I'll see you on the next one.